You can't doubt the power of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, not with the hundreds of adaptations and spoofs of it. It's pretty astounding when looking at the data, but I suppose it's not all that surprising. The story is pretty simple, but there's a beauty in that simplicity. That simplicity is also what makes the story so malleable and able to be retold in straight fashion or in more unconventional means. As for me, I've loved the story since I was about 3 years old. At first it was because it was about Christmas and spooky ghosts. Now as an adult I like it because... well, still because of Christmas and spooky ghosts, but also because of the message behind it, about how helping each other is what truly makes life worth living, and how it's never too late to change your attitude for the better. Like I said, it's a simple story, but one that everyone should really take to heart. As I mentioned, the amount of times a story has been adapted for screen alone probably is in the triple digits, and that's not including radio, stage, and comic adaptations. There have been several different series online that review the many incarnations of Christmas Carol, I'm well aware, but this story is very important to me, so I'm gonna try my hand at it as well. I'm not going in any particular order, though, I'm just taking them on as I see them. Otherwise I'd have to start all the way back in 1901. For this series, I think the best way to start would be with my first Carol starring Mickey Mouse and Scrooge McDuck. The reason I'm starting with Mickey's Christmas Carol is because of how important it is to me. I think it's a great way to introduce kids to the story, and I'll admit that's speaking from very personal experiences. It wasn't always a cartoon, however. In 1974, a record album came out called an adaptation of Dickens' Christmas Carol presented by the Walt Disney Players. The Players, of course, were Mickey and friends. There were only 3 voice actors, and while the lavish artwork on the album featured the Disney gang in the characters' attire, there were no real efforts made to sound like them. There were also several songs written by Buddy Baker, who wrote songs and scores for many Disney movies and attractions at the time, most notably for the Haunted Mansion.
Grim grinning ghosts come out to socialize.
The record sold poorly, perhaps because of that lack of character voices making it miss that certain Disney touch that people expected going in. In 1975, actor Alan Young was asked to rewrite the script for the record, and a new version was sold with more emphasis on humor and the characters themselves. Young voiced Mickey Mouse, as Bob Cratchit, for the one time in his career, but, much more notably, he voiced Scrooge McDuck, as Ebenezer Scrooge, of course, for the first of many, many, many times. Young continued to voice Scrooge until his death in 2016. In addition to Mickey and Scrooge taking the lead roles, the record also featured Donald Duck as nephew Fred, because Donald is also Scrooge McDuck's nephew. For some reason, Foulfellow and Gideon from Pinocchio played the collectors for the poor, making them seem unintentionally less than reputable, since the fox and the cat were unapologetic swindlers in their movie. Even more out of character was lovable old Goofy as the damned for eternity Jacob Marley. Merlin the Wizard from The Sword and the Stone played Christmas Past, Willie the Giant from Mickey and the Beanstalk was Christmas Present, and the old hag from Snow White was Christmas Future. Rounding off the cast was Daisy Duck as Isabel, Scrooge's lost flame, Minnie Mouse as Emily Cratchit, one of the only times she and Mickey have been portrayed as married, I might add, and Mickey's nephew Morty as Tiny Tim. Mickey's other nephew, Ferdy, played Peter Cratchit. In 1983, the record was adapted into the short we all know and love, with much of Alan Young's script being retained. Certain characters were changed, however, like the collectors for the poor becoming Rat and Mole from The Wind and the Willows, Jiminy Cricket as Christmas Past, and Peg-Leg Pete as Christmas Future. The bouncy songs by Buddy Baker were cut for time, but a beautiful opening song called Oh What a Merry Christmas Day was added. Alan Young voiced Scrooge again here, with Wayne Allwine taking over as Mickey, voicing the mouse here for the first time. He would continue to voice Mickey in virtually every appearance until his death in 2009. Also, this cartoon featured the last time that Clarence Nash, Donald Duck's original voice actor, would provide his iconic voice to the character he originated. Speaking of history, this was Mickey's first theatrical short in 30 years, his last one being 1953's The Simple Things. If it wasn't for this factoid, I think The Simple Things would just be a blurb in Mickey's history, since most of the So-So cartoon focuses on Pluto and a pesky seagull instead of Mickey himself. Words cannot describe how much I love this short film. I still remember sitting on the couch with one of my cousins watching it one morning in 1993 after it had been taped from a broadcast on CBS the night before. I was taken in almost instantly, hooked by the time Goofy showed up as Jacob Marley. I don't know if I can fully explain what it is about this short that drew me in, and continues to keep me here. There's something that's just very cozy and comforting about this presentation. You could argue that maybe they went a little too far in softening up Scrooge here, since he's almost playful in the way he likes to swindle people. But it's not like Disney never toned down these kinds of characters before. Also, Goofy as Marley is admittedly a very odd choice, and although I personally love it, I can see why it might raise a few confused eyebrows. If I had to choose the short's biggest weakness, it would be glossing over Scrooge's troubled past. All we really see of him is a shy child who's nervous to dance with his crush, and then we transition directly to him dumping her unceremoniously. Anything that got him from point A to point B is never really stated, only vaguely alluded to.
Yes, that was before you became a miserable miser, consumed by greed.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Despite this, the story still works. Softer or not, it's still made clear that Scrooge needs to make a major change in his life, or the consequences will be severe. That's the thing, the dark aspects of the story are still here, even if they're slightly muted. Yes, we don't see that much of London's poverty that Dickens explored thoroughly over his career, but it's a family cartoon that runs under half an hour, with a decent amount of material to cover. Still, we have the Cratchits' exaggeratedly meager dinner and the Christmas present scene hinting at what's to come, followed by the gut punch of seeing Mickey/Bob mourning Tiny Tim's death in the future. This is easily the saddest take on this moment I think I've ever seen, since the book and most adaptations have Bob attempting to put on a brave face for his family. Seeing him in tears like this, especially on the face of Mickey Mouse, is definitely going to get a reaction from most people. Really, everyone is in top form here. Animators, voice actors, background artists, the music department. This is probably my top Disney short film, hands down. Quite frankly, this right here is what got me into the Christmas Carol story. Well, this and the Muppets version, I certainly can't sell them short. Mickey's Christmas Carol was released in theaters in 1983 with a reissue of The Rescuers. It was nominated for Best Original Short, but lost to Sunday in New York. Disney has done so many great pieces of animation that it's easy for the good ones to get overshadowed by the other good, and perhaps easier to market pieces. Thankfully, for Mickey's Christmas Carol, it is shown sporadically on TV during the holiday season, and beautiful Macy's-style window displays of the short often decorate Main Street USA and the theme parks around the same time. There will always be a special place in my heart for Mickey's Christmas Carol. Without it, I don't know if I'd have grown to care about this classic tale as much as I do now. I guess what the book stated about Scrooge's childhood is true. Things that happen in your childhood really can affect you later on. And in that case, I thank God for Mickey Mouse.